Give him a round of applause.
Thank you for having me. How's the sound? Is the sound all right for everybody? Great? Yeah, it's okay? Do you want a little louder, or am I loud enough? I'm naturally just too loud? Okay. Yeah, that's what I get told. I'm like, just shh, right? Guys, I wanted to start off with a quick question. And I wanted to ask you all, which one of you would identify yourselves as artists by a show of hands? How many of you would identify yourself as artists? So let's look around the room. You got 1, 2, 3, 4. I got a hand that kind of went up. So that's maybe, what, 5, 6, 7% of the room? And I want you to take that thought. We're going to put it right here. I'm going to come back to this thought. A gentleman by the name of Gordon Mackenzie is actually famously known for a lot of the writings he had for the Hallmark cards. You guys, you know, the Hallmark, there's actually a real science and art that goes behind all the writings in these Hallmark cards. But Gordon Mackenzie did a lot more than that. He was a consultant. He did a lot of the creative fundraising. He did a lot of creative work. And he actually took on a little study. He would go into schools, and he would ask kindergarten children, how many of them are artists? And how many do you think put their hand up? Every single one, right? All of them just like, me, I'm the artist, I'm the artist. And, you know, I'm lucky and blessed. I have a beautiful 7-year-old niece. And if any of you have been around little children, they've got the world's energy, right? And when I go to my sister's house, her daughter, they have the little art pieces right on the fridge, right? And I look at them, and I'm like, Noor, those are hideous. Like, who puts up this art? Like, that's stick figures. You can't tell them this is good. We're not teaching them the right thing. It's like, Fahd, stop it, right? But it's really interesting. Children believe that they're artists. Now, Gordon actually went on to follow the same group of students. So he went on and he asked them when they were in grade 3, he said, how many of you are artists? And about half the room put their hand up. So about 50% of the room put their hand up. And he followed the same group of students when they got to grade 6. And something very interesting happened, very similar to this room. But 10% of them put their hand up. And so one of two things really happened. They either got worse at art, or somebody told them that they weren't good enough. And somebody told them to, don't try that, you're not that great at it. Or they told themselves, and they saw their peers. And the difference, what's the difference between the students in grade 6 that kept creating art and the ones that didn't? Really is one difference. The ones that identified as artists kept creating art. They are creators. They create. The ones that didn't simply stopped. And similarly to leadership, many of you who are in leadership positions will know that leadership is an art. It's an art of creation. And the difference between leaders and those who are not leaders is that leaders create, and leaders continue to create. And if I ask you the question, how many of you here would identify themselves as strong leaders? How many of you, by show of hands, how many of you would identify yourself as strong leaders? Okay. That's amazing. Wait, keep your hand up, keep your hand up. I want you guys to look around and look at how blessed we are to be in this room. Because this isn't the general population, but this is a group of high achievers. This is a group of shakers and movers and creators. And that's the beauty of this. This is the beauty of these programs that our university runs. And my goal here today is I'm going to share with you, from my experiences, the 4 principles of disruptive leadership that will keep you being a leader over the years. Because the people who put your hand up, my message to you is, in 5 years, will you still have your hand up? Or will society tell you at some point that you're not good enough? And so I hope that from my message, in 5 years, you still have your hand up. But for those of you that didn't put your hand up, the message and the 4 leadership principles and the disruptive leadership principles that I want to talk about today, I hope these are the steps that you can take over the next year, 2 years. Some of you are graduating. Who here is graduating this year? A few of you? Hopefully. One of them is like, I don't know, maybe. I got to pass one of the classes. Right? And you've got this amazing journey ahead of you. in leadership, in disruption, and in creation. Because as humans, we innately are creative and we innately want to create. So the first leadership principle that I want to take on is embrace and leverage failure. I'm going to repeat that one more time. I want us to embrace and leverage failure. And I know some of you are thinking, okay, but Fahd, I don't like failing. I don't want to fail. Why would I embrace it? Come on, right? I don't even fail classes. We don't talk about failure. But why do we want to embrace it? Well, how many of you here would identify as achievers? Most of you put your hand up as leaders. Most of you, yeah, if you're self-identified, you're here, you're an achiever. You get fulfillment from achieving, right? You got your go, 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 you want to achieve. On average, achievers' biggest fear, can you guess what it is? You all know it. The achiever's biggest fear is failure. So wait, you've got this dichotomy. You tell yourself you're an achiever. You tell yourself this is what I want to be. But then the thing that's pulling you furthest away, your biggest fear is failure. But what if we flipped it on its head? And what if we looked at failure like the red lights that you had to stop at as you were driving to Johnny Farina's? And it's simply a stop, and you got to wait, and you shouldn't pull out your phone and text and drive at that time, even though it's a red light, And you start your engine, you keep going. You don't even start your engine. The engine's still on. You keep going. So David Barlin wrote a book called Art and Fear. And in the book, he talked about a ceramics teacher, an art teacher. He took a high school class. And just like this, he split the high school class into two. He said, you guys are one group, and you guys in the other. And he took the first group, and he said, you guys have to create an art project, each and every one of you. And you will be judged on the amount, the quantity of work you create, the quantity of art projects you create. Then he moved over to this side, and you said you guys have the same exact time, 45 minutes, and you guys will be judged on the quality of your art. Now, the results were profound. I would have thought, and I think most of you here would have thought, that the individuals who focused on the quality of their one art would have had the better product, would have had the better art piece. But he found the results completely different. He saw that the group that focused on the amount and the quantity of art actually had a better art piece at the end. Wait, how does that even work? Well, the process is simple. You created the first one and it was crap. So you created the second one and you didn't make it as crap. And then the third one was a bit better, and the fourth one, and you actually learned as you were creating more and more and more. And by the 30th time that you created a little apple, it was damn good. But you focused on that same apple, and it had bumps and weird stuff, and you still were trying to create that, you were trying to fix that first one. And so, interestingly enough, we have this idea that quality trumps quantity, right? This is a belief we have in our society, yeah? Most of us would know that. But in this case, in creativity and in creation, quantity leads to quality. So when we embrace failure and we look at failure simply as a process, because these guys failed 30 different times till they got to their final product. They failed 30 different times. They kept on creating one another, but that process, that iteration, got them to the highest level quality. So quantity leads us to quality. And so I really want us to embrace that. And I really want us to embrace failure. And so much so that I've based the rest of this entire talk on 3 of my largest failures as an entrepreneur and as a student leader. And some of you were students while I was a student leader, so you're gonna see my perspective on some of these very public failures that you saw either on the newspaper or wherever it was, social media and all that. So the first principle of disruptive leadership, embrace and leverage failure. The second one is ignite and manage conflict. Ignite and manage conflict. And I know some of you are thinking, but wait, conflict? Fahd, I don't want that. I don't want to hurt people's feelings. I don't want conflict. I avoid that. I'm going to tell you the story It was September 2015, and the federal election was just called. And our Prime Minister at the time, Stephen Harper, called one of the longest federal elections that we've seen. And I was the president of the student union at the time. And I looked at my team and I said, guys, what are we going to do to engage the students in voting? We don't care how they vote. You can vote marijuana party, you can vote Rhino party, Liberal party, marijuana party. You can vote whatever you want. It doesn't matter to us. But what mattered to us was that you voted. We wanted to engage the students in voters, and we don't want voter apathy. So we came up with all these ideas, right? We started brainstorming. We embraced the concept of failure. So we're going to try so many different ideas. We're going to try this. We're going to try and we're going to bring the polls on campus. We're going to work with the alumni associate. We're going to work with the student experience office. We're going to work with all these clubs. We're going to bring it. And then one night, we hit on what we thought was pure genius. We said, we're going to make a music video. To this day, I don't live that moment down. So we said we're going to make a music video. And some of the students are laughing because they're like, I remember that. We said we're going to make a music video. And so we started writing. Well, I'm going to, I felt like a rap artist. It's like, what are my lines? What are my bars that I'm going to spit? How am I going to go through this? We started looking at different songs that we could remix. We contacted one of our friends who had a studio. We had a camera crew, everything. We said, we're going to go all out. We're going to make this top-line production. We're going to make a music video because it's going to engage all the students who don't usually get engaged. And that second night, we stumbled on the video that we were going to use, the existing music video. Who here has heard of the song, I'm on a Boat? For the younger audience, okay, yeah, you guys all know it. For the older audience, it is kind of a parody song, but it's a funny song about a wannabe a rapper that kind of makes raps on just jokes, and he's on a boat with T-Pain, right? T-Pain is it? Yeah, he's on a boat with T-Pain, and he's just rapping how I'm on a boat, I'm on a boat, and then there's like a million swear words, like mother, I'm on a boat, just keeps going, right? But the idea is like he's just so proud of this, but. We thought, easy, I'm on a boat, I'm gonna vote. Pure genius. I know, we never thought of that. And we decided, for the beauty of marketing, that we were not gonna take out a single word of profanity. Not take out. We kept every single word of profanity because we're students. And we're edgy marketing. Yeah, it's gonna be awesome. And we posted it we got it filmed, we got it done, and we posted it the next day. And man, did it blow up. 60,000 views in 2 days. 60,000 views. I've never gotten any of the kind of views like that in anything else I've done. We were on CTV News, CBC News, Vice News picked us up. I'm pretty sure Obama only has 2 articles on Vice News, Vice News picked us up. But guess what the Vice News article headline was? Worst music video in Canadian history. And, we had a lot of students that came. One of the students, I'll never forget this, I got a call in my office, and they said, Fahd, you've lowered the value of my Carleton degree. It's like, because of my music video? They're like, yeah, it's known internationally now. And it was. I had friends that weren't in the country messaging me about it. Hey, I saw your video. It's funny. And we thought it was a joke. We thought it was a parody. We thought this would be, hilarious. And so we debriefed it. And we sat down as a team, and I sat down with my team, and I said, guys, what happened? I honestly, genuinely thought this was a genius idea. I couldn't see it going wrong. I mean, looking back, it's kind of funny, but I said, guys, what's going on? We all thought it was a great idea. And then one of them spoke up. One of them said, Fahd, I didn't think it was a great idea. I said, well, you're just saying that after the fact. That's not fair. And another one said, yeah, man, I actually didn't. I didn't really want to support it from the beginning. I didn't think it was good. So, well, why did you guys say anything? I said, well, Fahd, you're loud, and you're dominating, and you've got a strong personality, and we don't always get our opinions in. And it really hit me in that moment. It really hit me in that moment, our responsibility as leaders to not avoid conflict, but to ignite conflict, to start conflict, to start debates of ideas. to make people challenge us. It's my job to get them to challenge me because I created an environment where they felt they couldn't challenge me. And I thought this was the genius idea. And I went along with it. And you're shaking your head, you're like, oh, how'd you think it was genius in the first place? I don't know. You know? But when we create environments that are groupthink, and we don't have differing opinions, because we like people who are similar to us. It's natural, right? We like people who are similar to us or people that we want to be like, right? And we surround ourselves with that. And we don't like differing opinions. Oh my God, you always argue the ideas. You're always arguing. You're such a devil's advocate. Well, we want devil's advocate because they allow us to take conflict. What does conflict give us? It gives us the journey to the truth. Consensus building is not always the best idea. But molding consensus, figuring that out, pulling it apart. And so that's the next disruptive leadership lesson. It's igniting conflict and managing conflict. Igniting and managing conflict. And when we embrace failure, when we embrace and leverage failure, we can then ignite conflict. Because then it's okay when an idea fails at the table. Because it's not personal. Because we're part of the iterative process. So, third principle leadership of disruption. Third principle leadership of disruption is to thrive in the line of fire. I want you to stick with me on this one. Thrive in the line of fire. For those of you that put your hand up as leaders, have you ever gotten credit for trying something and failing? Generally speaking, generally speaking, leaders are measured by their successes. If you succeed, you're a great leader. Good job. But trying is not given a pat on the back. Attempting something big and trying to figure it out is not given a pat on the back. And so we avoid the line of fire. But instead, I want you to thrive in it. I want you to think about this line of fire. I want you to thrive in it. I'm going to give you the example, actually, from last year in my time in the student union. We had really come in at a problem. And the problem that we had identified as student union was that there was not enough student space. We said there wasn't enough study space for what we wanted. There wasn't enough recreational space. There wasn't enough space for our services. There wasn't enough space for all the different activities we wanted to do. And we used to have more space, but as the campus, as different services grew, our space as a student union shrunk. And so we were visiting UBC, and we were visiting these other campuses, and it hit us. Wow. We want to create something magical. We want to create a student union building. Yeah. Create a new building on campus for students. That's genius. And we did the market research. We went to the university. We sat down with the university. We got designers and architects. The university spent over $150,000 to design this entire project. We had even like VR headsets. You could put it on, and you could like walk through the building. I'm pretty sure you weren't supposed to walk. You were just supposed to press the button, but you felt like walking, right? And you could walk through the building, and it was really cool. And we wanted to do this whole immersive process of what it could be. But it was obviously going to cost the students money. So what did we have to do? We had to run a referendum. We have to ask the students, are they willing to pay for the extra dollars that's going to go to build this building? And we built this entirely huge campaign. Like, the details, it was huge. We had months and months of planning, and the marketing, and the videos, and everything. Because we were like, we're embracing failure. We're going to embrace failure. We created several different videos. We created several different plans of the building, one after another. We did consultations. We engaged in conflict. We went out to student groups that we knew were not a fan of CUSA, and probably some of you here are probably like, I don't like CUSA either. And it's okay. But we knew certain student groups weren't fans of the student union. We went to them and said, hey, we got a plan. What do you think? We engaged in conflict. We sought out conflict, and we iterated our process. And we had this amazing final product because we went through our own process. And we saw a record, like shattering record, number of voters come out for the student union building. Against it. We lost by 2/3 the vote. That's a 65 to 66% voted against. And why? Well, during the process, students from all corners came out, and we had a target on our back. They said, you want me to pay more money No. And they started to argue with us, and they started to debate with us, and they started to put us in the line of fire. But many of the students that were running this project weren't ready as leaders to be and thrive in the line of fire. When we got in the line of fire, they said, Fahd, maybe this isn't a good idea. Maybe we shouldn't do it. We don't have to go through with it. We can just stop. We don't have to have the vote. And there were so many ways to go out, because as soon as we put ourselves in the line of fire, as leaders, we crumbled. We got scared. We worried about failure. And so I want you to thrive in this line of fire. And I want one more example of this. I want you to, I talked about my niece, but I'm blessed because I have a lot of brothers and sisters, and I have 8 nieces and nephews, and I've got this one little guy, right? He's 1 year old. His name is Ahmed, and typical Arabic name, but that's okay. And he is adorable. He is just, and he is starting to talk. And the other day he said his first word. This other day we're all sitting there at family, and he looks over at his mom and he says, "Ma." And everybody lost it, right? Oh my God, he said "Ma." They took the baby. Oh, say it again, right? We all get so excited for this baby that said "Ma." We don't look at the baby and say, "It's Mom. You said it wrong." Because they did. But we don't. We celebrate their attempt. It's not a mistake, it's an attempt. You're getting there. We celebrate them because they said "Ma." And I want you to ask yourself, when the last time you celebrated a failure or an attempt? Because an attempt should be celebrated, because an attempt took courage. And that courage, if we pull courage out from our gut, and we use it, and it's tough to pull it out sometimes as leaders, and we use it, and then we don't celebrate the fact that we used it, what's it going to tell our nervous system? Don't do it. Don't pull courage out. It doesn't lead to anything good. You just feel bad afterwards. So avoid it. Avoid the conflict, avoid the failure, avoid the line of fire. But as disruptive leaders, as leaders in a new age, these are things we have to do. And so the last one, and the last principle of disruptive leadership that I wanted to share is actually a rather simple one. But it's improve and grow. And I recently graduated from Carleton University in past April, which was fantastic. And I took on a startup venture because I thought it was cool. And everyone should be an entrepreneur. No, I'm not saying that, but there's a bit of the hype and the excitement around it. And sure, why not? Let's try it. And we identified a marketplace. We identified an issue. We had identified that these phones, if you don't mind, these phones cost way too much. Who here has an iPhone 10? Okay, good. I was going to make fun of you. No, you had an iPhone 10. After you pay for Apple Care and taxes, you paid $2 grand. $2 grand for a phone. And we said, you know what? There are people who want that, but there are people who want a simple thing, want a simple phone. And so we decided to start a brand and start a company based on bringing over simple phones manufactured in China and see if we can enter the market at a lower rate. And so we called it Frank. And the tagline we used was "Frank is a phone." We also used another tagline that was that Frank is just a phone, effing phone. But that's me and my marketing with swearing, profanity. I guess I haven't learned that lesson. And it took off. We had all the plans. We did several design iterations of the phone. We did several designs of the brand. So we took 6 months to develop that brand, iteration after iteration. We tested surveys. We sent out different things. The A/B tested the whole thing. We knew how to embrace failure and how to leverage it. We ignited conflict by sending it to different groups and sent it to friends who worked at Apple, sent it to friends who worked with Samsung. I want your opinion. I want to ignite conflict. We got ready to thrive in the line of fire. Because if we were going to put a product out there, and we're 2 young guys that were doing this, everyone's going to be like, you don't know what you're doing. So we were ready to thrive in it. We were ready to embrace it, right? And we took it all. And you know what? On the first day of launch, I had 13 different news articles go out about Frank. In 4 days, we raised $70,000 USD, $70,000 in 4 days. Our goal was $250K, and we were on track to do it. It was like, wow, we were going to do this. And then it came crumbling down due to many issues. We had a bit of a legal issue with Indiegogo, the platform we were using. We had a bit of issues with some of our marketing. We had a bit of issues with some of the market fit. We were using a channel that didn't work for our customers, so on and so forth. And I digested it, and I wrote an entire, and I suggest people do this. After something fails, I wrote an entire document. I just sat down and said, okay, what failed? Why didn't it work? And I wrote, and I wrote, and I wrote, and I wrote. But there was one thing that it came to, is that the company I was working with, the 5 people that we brought together to do this, somehow developed all my bad habits. They showed up late to meetings. Deadlines were suggestions. You know, they overlooked details because I'm not a detail-oriented person. Their habits became mine. My habits became theirs. And I was bewildered by it. And as I kind of dug into it, I learned this principle is based on the fact that your company, your organizations, your culture that you create, whatever you create, will take on your personal habits. And so what we must do as leaders, which is the basic foundation and the simplest rule of them all, is that self-leadership comes before anything. And that as individuals, we must improve our leadership. We must grow. We must improve. And we must continuously look at ways to grow and improve. Whether that's through books, whether that's audio programs, whether that's seminars. When is the last time you immersed yourself in learning? And I'm not talking about school. I'm not talking about learning your physics assignments. I'm talking about personal development. When's the last time you looked inward? What are my strengths? What can I do? What do I want to learn? How do I improve myself? And unless I was able to fix that, even though I knew all these principles and I knew all the things I needed to do, I wasn't able to launch this product. And so I wrap that up with those four fundamental disruptive leadership principles. But a question that always asks me is like, Fahd, why do we need more leaders? Fahd, why do we need to create ambitious, agile, or disruptive leaders? We are in the single most exciting age of our time. At the turn of the 18th century, when we got in the 1900s, we had the Industrial Revolution, the greatest revolution of our time that disrupted every single market. Everything changed in the world. Where we lived, how we interacted with machinery, how we got our foods, everything changed. And at the turn of the 2000s, we've taken on the technological revolution. In our own lifetimes, in 5 years, and some of us are young in this room, in 5 years, everything changed. What? 5 years, how we communicate changed. I look at the first iPhone that came out and I laugh. That was garbage, you know? And we all know this, but we're in a technological revolution where technology moving faster than our lawmakers. Our politicians can't keep up with what's happening in the Bay Area. And our refugee crisis is the largest we've ever seen in the world. The environmental crisis that we have is one of the most significant in the world. And so we, as young leaders, this is, we're so-called the entitled generation. Well, we're gonna inherit this world and all its problems, and we are inheriting it. And so the question is, how are we going to solve tomorrow's problems if we're stuck using yesterday's principles? So we have to think of new ways to disrupt. Leaders that not only put out fires, but start fires and start new ideas. And so I challenge you to embrace these leadership principles, to embrace failure, to leverage failure, to ignite conflict, to thrive, truly thrive in the line of fire, and finally, to learn and grow. Thank you for your time.